Welcome to the Crazy Wisdom Podcast. I've got Jacob Hall and Kyriakos Skiouris, and they are co-founders for Agingo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
So, cryptocurrency, but not cryptocurrency, blockchain. You guys got blockchain. Is it a private blockchain or is it a public blockchain? What's going on there?
It's a platform.
Platform.
Create any kind of blockchain you want.
That's interesting. So a blockchain framework for development?
So no, I'd say that we represent a paradigm shift in the ability to achieve what a lot of the potential promises behind a lot of the crypto in that world have. We focused for the past 10 years on trying to come up with a solution to problems. For better, for worse, like we actually solved those, but now that's put us into a great position to be able to present something that's actually useful and is going to take a lot easier palatability from at least the corporate environment and the people who are making the decisions that run a lot of the things, turning blockchain and the entire crypto effort into a more professional landscape. Yeah, like where compliance controls, the ability to investigate transactions and know things and all that stuff can be done, but where there's not a confusing language around smart contracts that are not smart and all that stuff. I mean, like I can poke, but that's not the point. I mean, the point here is that everybody wants these very real solutions, but there aren't any. Yeah.
It's so interesting because for the past few weeks, I had mentioned before we started recording that I'm teaching people vibe engineering. I'm also bringing experts in who are already developers who are also using AI to code. And so for some reason, well, actually, there is a reason. There's a big crypto conference called Dev Connect that's happening in Buenos Aires coming up in a month. And so I actually have partnered with a local crypto center to host these courses and host our AI events. But our community is mostly focused on AI rather than crypto. But because we partnered with them, I wanted to make sure that we're providing relevant education to the people who are coming to this conference and people who are here in Buenos Aires. And so we've been doing vibe engineering courses on smart contract development for the past 3 weeks. 4 weeks ago, I had no idea about anything within the smart contract development. And for some reason decided to start with Spanish first. So our friends, Maori, who's a previous podcast guest, he built an MCP server to get all the documentation for all the crypto protocols into his MCP server, which allows us to, as vibe engineers, to go understand it. And so now I built my first Ethereum blockchain smart contract. All it is a number on the blockchain that doesn't do anything. We tried to do a currency swap. But one of our students, he was able to, from zero, he's a chemist, go and create a smart contract. And yesterday, luckily we did it in English, and it was a great class. I understand that there's two forms of development for smart contracts. One is finance, like what you guys are talking about, which is like large contracts that have been audited over and over again for 10 years, and you only trust them because they've been that hit so many times, either through implicit or explicit auditing. And then there's the governance side of smart contracts for DAOs and groups of people to basically do decentralized thing. For the crypto side, I'm now more interested in that governance side, but it sounds like what you guys are working on is more on that finance side of like providing these tools to companies that need these protocols for some reason, but not inside the crypto protocol realm.
I think that it actually has to do with sovereignty. I don't know if anything in the world, if you can be audited at speed, you can be sovereign. No interest for anybody. If you can't check your own checkbook immediately right now, is that your money?
Yeah, interesting.
Is that your vote if you can't see that you put it in today? It is. So at the same time, while the validations are great, if you can't do it right now, then what you're just creating a timing, the weakest link in our social chain into having to wait and slow down for it, right?
Stuart, I have a question for you. When you built that smart contract, I'm assuming at some point in your career, you had to write a real world contract and negotiate a contract.
Yes.
So what was your experience like creating a smart contract? Or was a real world contract before you learned about smart contracts?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love it when guests turn it around on me. So I have had written contracts. The most interesting thing I've learned about contracts recently is that there's the written contract, but the whole point of writing the contract is that you never use the contract, right? So it never goes to that step because you have trust between the people who are doing business that it never actually. What's that?
2008, but just like intentionally now, right? You're just going to slap a folder binder around all these toxic assets and just keep the label.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so it's interesting because it's like that's the difference between doing business with this giant system, and there's so many threads of like how many problems I've had with insurance because I signed contracts with them that I had no idea were because they're too long for me to read, and it's like it's not. I now have AI. I would throw them into AI and actually understand, but I like my roof broke from a snow crash 4 years ago, and it was insane what was in that contract. Like, and the luckily luckily the guy came in and he the auditor of he did me a favor. He said that the hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this, but he like said that the branch had hit it rather than the snowfall, which was an act of God. And so like if it were just the snowfall, if he had written that on his contract, I would have been screwed. But he had said the branch. So like that. So that question was asked because we're talking about trust on these large systems. Where did it come from, and what's at play here?
So what would have happened with a smart contract? If you have that same scenario, but it was a smart contract with 1360 bytes of data, what can
There'd be no way to put it on the blockchain, right? There would be no.
pretty much?
Yeah. So, yeah, and this is what thank you guys for talking with my voice agent beforehand, the voice AI agent, because one thing I got from that is that you guys have 300,000 transactions per second with 10,000 nodes, and there's tokens, so it's a tokenized blockchain, and you can contain real world legal contracts with movies. Is that accurate?
Oh, sure. So our tokens are more like I think of it as an object oriented blockchain, where the tokens are more like we all thought a token was when Chuck E. Cheese was the only place that had tokens. You know what I mean? Like interesting market token. Yeah.
Well, again, the kind of token. Every blockchain that derived from Bitcoin is just a linear growing ledger, right? It's a single ledger that's growing over time. Your smart contract, if you have one, is just an entry in that ledger. Underneath the covers, you're using Polygon, Avalanche, Solana, whatever it is. Our approach was different. We instead of one linear chain, we have 4 agents that create nanochains. Okay, many dimensions of information.
Agents. What do you mean by agent there?
Okay, yeah, because of AI. Yeah, we've been doing this for 9 years, so yeah, let me demystify. The blockchain design itself separates and isolates different requirements for a completed system to be able to be put together. It all operates derivatively, meaning that all 4 processes have to be running, but it's collectively only identified as one system. So this in philosophy and everything is, argument of one of the many. You can only address it as one thing, but it's composed of many, right? And the other concepts here is that we embed a kind of programmatic governance and or gravity to the system that it has to operate within. Like my favorite is can't grade your own homework. If you're sending a transaction, if you're within it and part of the validation of the transaction, you can only be one of 1/4 of that part of whatever the transaction we're in. So that also means that there's multi-party compute that's happening to guarantee that no one party is ever going to be compromised.
So there is blockchain elements to it, but it's a platform that helps people do real contracts.
So according to our Claude's assessment, we are, the full evolution of what blockchain is going to become.
Got it.
Yeah, weird. Ironically, there's a term in AI called AGI, but nobody ever came up with that term for blockchain. Why do you think that is?
Ooh, that's a good question. So why? Interesting. What is it moving to? So the goal for AI is AGI. What is the goal for blockchain? Ponzi schemes.
But let me rephrase it. Like, what promise has blockchain or any one of the named platforms actually achieved?
Yeah.
And are we even past that point?
Satya Nadella said it at Davos like 2 or 3 years ago. At Davos, whenever ChatGPT emerged, he said, we need a ChatGPT moment for blockchain. But no one ever labeled it. Never has ever said, well, what are those goals? We've been working on that. So we have some knowledge of those goals.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, this is really interesting territory. I'm going to write this down. Why is there no AGI for blockchain? So
Scalability, security, privacy, but they're not really defining what the holy grail of that is.
yeah, they're just processes. Everybody just talks about processes, and it's so strange, like why that happened. I'm constantly perplexed by what's happened in crypto since 2017.
So are you familiar with the Alice in Wonderland experiment
No,
or torture trials in the 60s?
no.
That's how I think that market got completely stood out.
So
So the Alice in Wonderland experiment is akin to falling out of an airplane without a parachute. If you see things that are right in front of you, even if it's, something that can hurt you, if there's an alligator, you're going to grab onto it and it'll become your certainty, right? Alice in Wonderland as a torture technique does this to an individual, but if you just blast media and blast everything, you create a cacophony within a space. Bitcoin,
yeah.
you do that, and you can create an entire group of people who believe something that they didn't believe before, or wouldn't have normally before, and it's a real known technique. Yeah. So, and that's what I believe. Like it's perspective and everything, but because how can you explain the fandom, this just like complete walling off to anything else that can be beneficial at Bitcoin, the crypto bros, this just like hard feudal line of is this one or none, very Schmiegel or Lord of the Rings.
Very much so. I actually agree strongly with that. There's this sense that I just tweeted about it a few days ago where everybody's really strongly devout to their crypto protocol, whether it's a Bitcoin maxi, there's a religious element. I happen to fall more aligned with that Bitcoin ideology, but it's Ethereum, it's Dogecoin, all the there's all these mini cults, and 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 never talking directly to an individual or a group, and you say Dogecoin is a cult, they won't get upset, but it's like everybody has their Ponzi that they're devoted to, but it's all Ponzi's, and including the actual economy itself. It seems maybe I'm a bit radical in that I think the actual economy is at that level now too. It's not that crypto is different from the economy. It's like narrative, monetary debasement, low interest rates, and fraud in 2008 have essentially like hollowed out the economy. Am I being too radical?
No. Kyriakos was there at the beginning of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So
I mean, part of this Alice in Wonderland thing too, is that wasn't the intent. I mean, if you were to look at the chat log or everything, it's all altruism. Yeah. Let's make sure that we do this right. Let's get everything out there. Don't present it in a way that it's going to give it a black eye. And then what ends up happening is you have market interests that people want to become market makers and this and that push people out, push a lot of the development. You have the fractures within even the Bitcoin Foundation, the leadership of the source code. It just becomes you have the great schism of the Catholic Church in 54, but it happens 2 days after that the religion is created, right? So there was no chance, and then the proselytizing of the abandonment. I mean, he bastardized, Bitcoin. All right. That should say something to an effect.
Wait, can you say what you're referring to?
Satoshi.
How did he bastardize it?
Where is he again?
Well, so, but it within the Bitcoin ideology that the fact that he did that is a good thing.
You mean the dogma now? The dogma.
Yeah, we could go. The reading of the tea leaves. Yeah. But he did that as a good thing because he left it so there's no one to attack.
Everything else he did was explicit except this.
Oh, interesting. That's a cool. I'm gonna go research that one later. Okay. So basically, it's like he was explicit about everything except for becoming anonymous. I thought he was explicit about being anonymous.
Who said that? Who said that?
Yeah.
Was it just one person's email?
Oh,
Sure, there.
do you think there was state involvement in Bitcoin?
Or
Yeah. As we were talking about with the predictive programming stuff, it's just like,
I mean, I'm a part of the email distribution in 2008, and I got like the crypto stuff. I was a very nerdy person, but yeah, I mean, like it was altruism. Like we're gonna save the world, guys. Let's make this baby. Like, I mean, like it's humiliating a little bit, like, but that's what we were all thinking we were doing. And then it's like all of a sudden it's like, all right, WikiLeaks, and we're going to be talking about like serious, scary shit now. Like,
that's interesting. Okay, there's some history there.
and you have the other interests, the threats that are happening. The CIA is going to get involved. We're going to we're going to find you, blah blah. Wait, all this stuff. So,
What is the
not to it was later found out that Satoshi pre-mined 100,000 tokens.
Oh, interesting.
Like that he didn't even mention. He had, like the old addresses and everything, the old pockets, the old the old wallets and stuff, and like those protocols. Even finding an original version of the source code is even hard. Because if you were to read the comments, there've been snippets of it even that come out. Like he wasn't treating it the way that everybody's now just certain with it. Right. He was meant to be something. He came to the world with what he had, right? Or she or entity of, and it was all right. Let's have a meta conversation about how we can do this. I've done something cool. How can we use this, together to do something better? But to think that was the end all, day one in 2008. Show me your Nokia, like chocolate phone, and tell me that 8 seconds of transaction is good.
8 seconds of transaction. What do you mean by?
Sorry, 8 transactions is okay.
Okay, ATP. Okay, so what is a good? I want to go read about this because I'm not familiar with what happened between Bitcoin between 2008 and 2013. What are some good sources to go read about that period and all the crazy stuff that you just mentioned?
There's a Greek guy actually out of Canada on
Mastering Bitcoin. Okay. Yeah.
He's awesome. He really is. He actually put a stereoscopic cryptography as one of his images on like Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. But I had it up there for like years, and it was like just an open. Like if you could see it, you could get it. It'd be like 10 Bitcoins or something on the bat. Just fine.
Okay. Brilliant.
The talk to Congress. There's good talks that he explains a lot of it and everything. To not our, I don't know if he spoke to our Congress, but the Canadian Parliament.
Blockchain is Satoshi didn't create blockchain. Blockchain was decades old,
right?
And it was built for closed loop control systems originally. So if you had an event happen here and you had an event happen way over here, you could know the order and the sequence that they happen. And what Satoshi was genius at, from my perspective, having spent 20 years in banking and innovation, is that Satoshi was able to take things that other people just saw as benign or failures in projects because it was too slow as a concept of blockchain, and put it together with other things to create something truly new. Something that changed everything, right? Made it possible even for us to exist at this point.
Okay. This is really good territory. The closed loop control system sounds really interesting. It sounds like I've been doing a lot of reading on the Renaissance and the Medici's and the ledger, how the ledger evolved, and it sounds like what you just said, a closed loop control system bringing two disparate data sets together is something I want to go investigate a lot more of. But a question came to me, which is essentially, do you guys think that the current price of Bitcoin is manipulated in a way that is totally outside the narrative, or do you guys buy into the Bitcoin belief that it still is that thing that is actually important, or are you guys completely anti it?
Well, checks still exist.
So it's a protocol. It's a protocol that essentially can have a lot of value, but there's a whole bunch of other things going on that it may have.
or to take a different perspective, there were 300 years of alchemy, so I don't know how long Bitcoin's going to go for. We're affected. We added a country's carbon emission and added a country without physically adding the land to it, and we're propping it up by adding more hash power to it to go the same speed. Look, interesting. Sounds like you're dancing with the robot trying to turn leg into goal.
Yeah. Bro, yeah. Problem is, technologies over time get displaced. That's just a fact. You give it enough time, something more efficient is going to emerge, has the same capability, but it does it better, faster, more secure, more put data in tokens. You can get some more secure as you add nodes. Your phone can self-custody everything. Many native issuances. No one's controlling what your token, how it works. You're not trusting a handful of developers to decide how the future of Bitcoin source code, or Ethereum or anybody else's.
So in this gets to the fundamental sort of value of a token, because I like the chain link idea of essentially having ability to cross chains in all these different ways, and provide a lot of efficiency. And also there's the fact of just Bitcoin, or not, sorry, not just Bitcoin, all of the crypto protocols. If you put that in the hands of a consumer, it's like it's worse than showing them a block of code. Like it's really bad to give them a public address, tell them they need to get a private address, go do a swap, accidentally swap one token on another token with losing all that. All of that is just, but agents are going to come in, and AI agents are going to come in and change all that. Do you guys think that is a token valuable to the, is the monetary aspect that has been sucked into Bitcoin and Ethereum actually relevant to the blockchain? Like, is it only just a giant Ponzi over the past 10 years, or is there something integral to blockchains that sucks value into them as this way of transferring? Does it, I'm like, it's a very edge of my understanding.
Like the conversation would have to be like, what is value, right?
Yeah.
A drachma represented, a full day's wage. That was breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a place to sleep. And that's what you got paid. Today, what is value? We want the monetary value of the unit one, right? And that value, based off of where you are in the country or wherever you are, is going to have its weight in being able to do what it can. Because, California is going to be one price and Charlotte's another. But for a gallon of milk, right? So you've got inflationary and deflationary concepts to where a currency by itself has to also be part of the system of governing, or the system of existence that we're all within, which right now is government, right? So if it's not, then in not having those controls, what if a Bitcoin was allowed, that protocol, it was allowed to exist for 2010? We'd all have to wait 10 minutes to watch the crash.
Well, we just saw the crash Friday. It was
because there would be, like, do you get what I'm saying? Trying to be cheeky, but it's not that anything is inherently good or bad. It's what the question is whatever we're doing in our social imaginary, is it productive?
Yeah. In this case,
right? By social imaginary, I mean, every day, when I hope this makes everybody laugh, but we all play being mimes. Every day when we get in our cars and ride down the street, we pretend that there's a wall that separates us all.
Yeah.
How much money and infrastructure do you think that saved the American taxpayer and everybody else? Because we painted a line on the ground. We're capable of doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, do accidents happen and all that stuff, but generally it's been such an effective rule. Nobody's complaining right now that we need to put walls up to keep all of us in the same lane, right? So it's about using the effective thing. Nobody's sitting here, we need digital, lanes. Let's upgrade it. We need to patch it and upgrade. It's because it works. Right. And how many people understand, Maxwellian, Maxwellian demon and loss and all that stuff? Or can they flip on a light switch for magnetism? So the job of the engineer used to be making something that anybody could use without being an engineer. Now you need to be an engineer to also exist in society, but not with your mind in the level of, ineptitude it would effectively make you feel if you didn't take a computer science route. Like, because yeah,
It's like, this gets a lot more back.
sorry.
It gets far out of the crypto blockchain space into something I love talking about, which is but also it's very challenging for everybody involved, which is in March 2020, I thought the world was ending, and so I tried to do what you just said I like there's a Maxwellian demon in everything that I do. How do I remove myself from this entire thing and go off into the forest and start making my own vegetables and so I did that. I tried to make that happen, realized how hard it was, and realized how thankful I am for the Western civilization, which is having some challenges in that specific. And it feels like, but like all the trinkets that we use, all the supply chain, all of that still is working. We still get our stuff from China. Nobody went through the extreme dystopia that I thought we were going to go through. It all works, but in that imaginary space, it's all breaking down. Like in the imaginary space that
It's creating a lot of self-imposed chaos. Like we're like people are putting their own blinders on. They're reading tea tree instead of asking questions. They're you know what I mean? Like, instead of, oh, okay, well, like people aren't doing what it means to be a good communicator.
Yep.
I've been saying, that there's a difference between communicating all day, sending emails, and being productive.
Yeah.
Been studies of this now, and that's a problem. Like, yeah, we can all sit here and say cell phones are terrible and all that, but we all love using them and blah, blah, blah. But we skip so fast. There's no etiquette to it. I mean, like, while it might be waspy or whatever, the etiquette of using forks and knives happened over thousands of years and all that, to the point where we know where every fork, knife, blade thing on that table and how to use it can go. All right. And none of that care has been put into any of this car.
Well, because I can't. There's no way to do it. Like, how do you do that? You have to recreate an elite that has been like put inside of this giant religious structure.
You think that they could have that kind of control.
Oh, interesting. Yes. Yeah, that is a good point. And that control structure is breaking down. Although maybe the
break down because you can't run that.
Yeah. Because there's
you actually need a container because you can pass out.
Yeah.
You want to be in a room, right? You don't want to be the room in that case. You can't.
Yeah,
you can't be the world and participate at the same time. Right.
Very good territory, and this is the idea of the whole network state type of talk, which is in the sovereign individual. Although the sovereign individual doesn't really get it either, because it comes down to the individual rather than a community. But it feels like that higher level structure,
the autonomy of the individual and a culture that respects the autonomy of the individual.
Yeah, interesting.
The best way that I've ever tried to explain this is there are laws that we should all follow, like stopping at a stop sign or a red light. But if it's 2:00 in the morning and the light's been red for 7 minutes, you should have the autonomy to know that you're not breaking the law when you run the light.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think that because of this, like, if let's say that a police officer pulled you over, he has no idea that you've been there for 7 minutes. But now if you don't have a dash cam, how are you going to get out of your ticket? So, like, this all becomes the same systematic kind of stuff. If we all don't slow down a little bit now, like, what is going to happen with AI? Has anybody thought about, like, we're making artificial intelligence and then we're moving towards AGI, this idea of digital life? Do we want to work on gestation at all? We want to figure out how to nurture this. We wanted to go directly sociopath.
Yeah, we're going to be begging for immutability.
How do you mean? What do you mean by begging for immutability?
Immutability, because these AI models can change things in very subtle ways. And you're going to want to know the data hasn't been tampered with, the data wasn't changed when you perform the transaction, and no one's going to take the time to watch it all the time to make sure it doesn't change. So you need a blockchain structure that has a low transaction cost where any device on the planet can participate in the compute. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It's not about who has the most money. It's about participation.
And that's also kind of like, a deep problem with the internet is if you have the fastest computer, you have the better experience.
I mean,
that's thing is, I like saying gravity a lot, but if I was to go anywhere on the planet and I asked anybody which way is up, they're all going to point the same way. Does that make everybody a liar, or do I now know that we're all on planet Earth? Right?
Yeah, there is no such thing.
So,
There's
but for the purpose of conversation, up and down are really helpful because it grounds us and we can communicate, even though that communication is not ever
real, but at which perspective of the one and the many are you going to play with? And it can't just be one that you choose. And that's how I think the industry is just chosen its perspective instead of allowing it to hurt.
Yes.
This hasn't been an organic growth. Somebody opened the door and let it shoved in a giant mess. And now while they thought that people would just clean it up, it's going to take longer than they thought, because the basis of the technology was adulterated before it even got a good chance.
Okay, well let's go into that from the angle of AGI for blockchain. You mentioned security. No, those were all features. But what is the goal? What is the AGI for cryptocurrency or for blockchain? For what is blockchain even? What is it going on right now?
You notice that the tokens, that they mentioned tokens, all these models are using tokens, right? Because it's a currency system that keeps them within their limits. It can only be spent to that point. It's also an easy way to get out, which is why they've been having all these problems. They're trying to keep them limited because they don't want them to go past. That's for real.
A token should be able to contain any amount of information, especially a real world contract. They need to do away with smart contracts. The holy grail of blockchain is you don't need so-called smart contracts or limitations and high costs to transact. You need to be able to transact at a low cost and write ink on paper.
We're tokens to act like paper. I told Jacob early on, with a Dunder Mifflin of tokens. Pick a company. All right. Yeah. It's somebody's going to make the Mona Lisa on it. Somebody's going to print money. Somebody's going to do, their homework, but we're going to be the substrate for all. And that as our technology, I say our technology, but it was fundamentally part of our design that, if you wanted to make a contention to what is currency today, it is at least one, but above all, at least do what it can right now. And then two, what are you upgrading? We had digital money. It's called a Visa and a credit card. These are all tokenized and blah, blah, and all that stuff, things. We've had it, and it made our lives easier. What is Bitcoin really doing to make it easier? What is Ethereum doing to make anything easier? Where were people using any of this technology in their daily lives? Within the introduction of and I use this one a lot with the team and everybody. When the car came out, you have to understand that having horses and everything, it was such a big effect that the brownstone houses in New York City are built 25 feet off the ground because there was so much manure in the streets. It was all right, it was that bad. So from the innovation of a car to today, how many blacksmiths do you know?
Daryl.
My joke. They're making horse.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a different mindset. New York City had horses everywhere. It was everywhere, and then almost within 30 years, they're gone.
So to continue on, Stewart,
That's not what happened with blockchain. That's not what's happened yet. What I mean by somebody opened a door that they saw a need and a want, but didn't see all of it yet, and they shoved in a piece of technology that kind of looks like it can do it, but it's not going to be able to.
And it can't do it because of the idea that
Processing.
linear
It's a trick train that can literally that has to stay on its tracks.
Yeah, every machine keeps a copy of the ledger forever. You have to imagine 100 years from now, what's the size of Bitcoin's ledger? How long will it take you to start up a full node that actually gives you privacy? What will it cost?
Not to mention all the ancillary efforts that are part of the reason why people get their stuff stolen, like Electrum server posting, where one person has the wallet online because it's big. It's 500 gig or whatever, right? But now, 10,000 people are using that as their official record for their account keeping. To make it fast before your cell phone. So problem that Bitcoin was trying to solve hasn't been solved yet. Right. And that's, like being able to deal with man in the middle and all of that. But the other stance that we took was, if you look at technology as a whole from, like mid-90s to now, good software has been written, and they've paid a lot of good engineers to do it, but it's only in the hands of like 5 giant companies. Because that's all they've been making, and they've been making the same stuff.
Yep.
Serving their systems to keep the same, like we're making a weather pattern, right? Like the water's going down and it's coming back up, but we don't see the water coming back up, and so it just rains again.
Interesting.
It seems like it's complex, but it's complicated, but it's new.
Yeah. And there's a whole economy that increases complexity. And this is what I love about vibe engineering, because now I knew that I had heard that it was all complex for monetary fake Ponzi scheme, but now I understand it. And now I'm able to like actually design systems that do have this other VC communism thing, which is really funny, which is that all the foundational labs are taking their VC money with the high velocity of money because the low interest rates, and they're all just funneling it into these coding agents to give it for free. But that's actually really nice for me, because then now I can take this intelligence and basically apply it to building systems that get me out of this just crazy loop of these really bad software decisions that are made for either because of stupidity or because they're building complexity into their systems that do these strange things. Okay, so linear blockchain, we have the whole blockchain in the node. To boot up a node in 100 years, we're going to have to like have this crazy thing because it's all linear, it's all in there. And you guys have a solution that is not linear, that is 3D time-based. What's going on there?
Yeah, so basically, there's 4 data chains: a user chain, a witness chain, an observer chain, and time. And we send strings of information through the system, through a volume. Okay, this is the first volumetric security. All the machines are protecting the information to validate, nobody changes the facts. But the data is not encrypted inside the stream. It's clear text. But, what if we had an AGI equivalent for blockchain? What's the holy grail of blockchain? Is that you can sell somebody a photo album service, their own instance of a blockchain. They don't think about blockchain anymore. Blockchain is not a thought. It's just, I can buy this immutable photo album. I can share my photos with friends and family, and it's mine. I own my data, and I can do specific things with it, and it'll work forever. And I can do that at low cost. And I just don't think about blockchain, because I don't need to worry about transaction fees. I don't need to worry about staking, keeping all thousands of miners running. I could do this with a small number of machines, even cell phones.
Very cool. So it goes back to, because a blockchain in essence is a database, but it's a different type of database that allows you to do something else. Right?
Yeah.
And so going back to that database right now, the database for Ethereum, it's a distributed database that allows people to transact, have wallets with private keys and public keys, and post things in a way that's transparent to everybody and a third party can't intervene with. Now, but a blockchain in itself, there's like a whole bunch of different blockchains. So what, in your guys' eyes, what is a blockchain and what does it allow us to do?
So yeah, blockchain to me was generally speaking, is the ability to create a history, right? Bitcoin isn't the history. It's just, the way that it got implemented. That's we could hold by as history. So now, instead of thinking that everything has to have a shared history, you start realizing that everything has its own perception of time. It has its own understanding of stuff. And you realize that we live in a volumetric system, and that a linear concept of time doesn't work because of, the rules of physics. Interesting. Because time, even though we know that simultaneously it's the same time on this side of the planet or the other side of the planet, the only way to measure that is to know the delta of light traveling from here to there, from that.
Interesting. Okay, wait. So let me repeat back what I heard. So blockchain just so far, just the Bitcoin and Ethereum have this time element where it's linear, where they just kind of like go through time, and there's a timer that both parties are agreeing to because there's that ledger. What you just
Which saying a block time. Every time there's a block, it's
block time. Interesting, block time. Okay. And that's like almost like a virtualization of the time that we experience in our physical world.
For blockchain, though, is inorganic and it's non-compatible to us in the sense that like your hair, even though you have long hair and might have more history in your hair, it doesn't have it from the time you were born because you cut it. Because it's unmanageable to keep it too long.
Got it.
Well, if your hairs are all individual blockchains, then I mean, why are you trimming it? Don't you need to have auditability of your hair?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, like, so like, there's a ridiculousness to it, right?
Yeah, if you treat it like DNA, if you treat it like a volume, you use the concept of a blockchain to create a way for information to move between identities that's secure, that enforces rules that are immutable. Instead of a what rule. The Bitcoin's rule is every time you want to add transactions, you put in the block, you hash the previous block after consensus by 51% of the machines, or
In which there's also an election of who's the timekeeper.
yeah. So this applies in time.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you mean by volumetric? I still don't understand the volumetric part.
Well, volume inputs us into multiple dimensional paths instead of just one. So
What are the dimensions?
meaning that like we live in 3D.
Yep.
Right. So that's what a volume, like we live in a volume.
Interesting.
Yeah. So volumetric security is being able to apply physics within a digital system and to having more dimensions of emergence, convergence, and choice to be able to be permitted within. So like, it's almost like you have a decentralized version of a video game where like, you know, if we're all playing Call of Duty, we can, you know, guarantee that the physics are being performed.
Cool. Yeah, it keeps on coming to my head. There's a previous podcast guest who is doing something completely unrelated to what you're doing. He's building the proof of liveness that is necessary to do a call like this once we get really good deep fakes. And the proof of liveness is all using cryptographic stuff. But what you just said makes me think that you guys would should meet each other. And I'm going to send you the podcast later that I did with him, which is wild in its own regard for reasons you'll see. Okay, so volumetric, and how does the 4 different agents that you talked about relate?
They operate as a doesn't help anybody in this actual math. Like think of it as a tesseract, right? So like a tesseract can actually move through 4 dimensions, right? It's not just representative of 4 dimensions. It's of any 4 that it's covering.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now each 4 of like one of the chains and everything, or one of the nano agents is operating within its own domained understanding of reality. So now every system, every individual, every computer, everybody has a recorded version of the history that's in their own perspective. Literally, your version on disk is recorded differently than anybody else's. But the informational payload, like what it means, is the exact same.
So Stewart, think of it like this, like I say dog. Right now, I just announced that into the world. We all had a conceptualization of what dog was. We saw a dog for the first time in different times. We recorded in our brains uniquely in different ways, but we can all validate what a dog is. It's hard to change, right? Can you imagine trying to change the world's perception of what a dog is? How will it be? What would you have to do?
You'd have to do the Stalin. You'd have to become Stalin, a tyrant.
The problem is that dog, if we called it 4-legged hound tomorrow,
Yeah.
doesn't change what the meaning is. Because it's representing what it actually is.
Got it. Yeah, it's like platonic. Yeah,
It's the sound.
Yeah.
It's the sound.
the word. Interesting.
And then when they could even, we are associated to a meanie. Like it's like a ledger. Like, hey, that's interesting me.
Language as a ledger is really interesting.
So now we make it harder. It requires at least 4 people to change anything. 4 identities, 4 machines to be able to validate a transaction. So now you can't just convince the entire world. Now you have to know the right combination of people to validate, to try to override. But you can't do it because the only thing you can do is give up 1/4 of the validation. 1/4 of the information that sends the next agent, and actually all machines simultaneously.
Okay.
So you would have to be everything. You'd have to be all combinations simultaneously. Can a supercomputer, can a quantum computer do that?
Interesting. Yeah.
Quantum computer, at least right now, can't be everywhere simultaneously.
Interesting. So, okay. So I get okay, but that's the volumetric part where there's four dimensions. Those four things are the dimensions, right? The four agents are the dimensions that allow volumetric security.
The volumetric capabilities to a shared system. Yeah. Got early on, like, is this helps? Like, think of it as board. For everything that comes on, it's just adding to the mass of that system.
Got it.
You got 10 nodes today, whatever's coming on tomorrow, it's still like system, like this is the, memory system. Like it, for everybody who's coming online, they're just adding more transactional throughput, more security. With every added node, it adds, the rough estimate right now, I'm still everything is about 128 bits of security, for every added node.
So,
You're growing with the security.
I want to talk about the business aspect because there's this really interesting fact I got about a few weeks ago about how Japan has now a Japanese bank has instituted a permissioned blockchain for all of their settlement, and they've got like $1 trillion who are doing for a permissioned blockchain within this bank. I think it's T-Post or something like that. And so they're actually got a big business use case for permissioned blockchains that's allowing them to do it. But there was a question I had about what you had just said, but I think I just lost it. So we're going to go into the business of it because oh no, that's what it is. So the token, are you establishing a token with a value in it? I imagine this is not for consumers, that it's going to be an ICO and you're allowing for tokens to be invested in via tokens and stuff like that. Is that what you guys are doing, or is it? Yep.
I'll give you an example. Because we're a service, we don't sell tokens per se. So we have this customer called Ethical Media, and they're enabling any number of films to be tokenized.
Cool.
Where the MP4 file is in the token. So basically, it's financing of films debtlessly, no equity. You're buying intellectual property rights in the film to fundified dishes. Cool. Down. So you get property, a literal contract in the token that says you're going to own part of this property, and you get to watch the film.
Very cool.
But they can do this they're not saying, let's build a layer on blockchain, call it crypto, and then build some more contracts for each movie. No, that's not what this is. They defined a token model for how to tokenize a film and manage its production. The owner is voting between the owners. All that history is on chain. All the data is on chain. And then any number of films can be tokenized. Layer 1. It's not like you don't need to sacrifice security, use layer 2, get speed, get our cost down, layer 1. It's just fast.
Okay, that's really cool. The idea, so it's almost like you've given ethical films a database, a blockchain, a tokenized database for themselves that they can host all of their content.
Yeah, I mean, it's an effective one. Like, you don't have to centralize the distribution of the content.
Oh, interesting.
Relevant. But the token is property.
Cool.
The real property.
Okay.
And CAT from the film's production use is distributed through the banking system.
That's interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, that's a whole new way to think about it. So and it goes through the traditional payment rails within the banking system, and legally, but I imagine there needs to be a legal response to this framework that you guys are developing. Is that right? Or is it already protected as property?
That's part of what we do when we have a customer contract with us, is we help them think through the compliance, regulatory, legal ramifications.
Yeah, interesting.
There's accounting issues to deal with. There's legal issues to deal with. We help them think through all of that, and then they run their business.
Interesting.
Right. They make more money than we do. But you can do this sometimes. The same argument VCs make about investing. Like their founders are, why did you raise money? I asked a founder one time and he said, well, Jacob, I can only do this one time, but VCs can do this 1,000 times. So we just put that. We're going to enable thousands of companies to build their own models for tokens and to be able to sell those as real world objects. Like you literally own your DVD and now you can sell it.
Yeah, in reality, the philosophy behind this was to try to create a system that provided agency. So it is part of my own, I have my own opinions, but why do you think there aren't that many people who can code that great? This big STEM push and everything. And even like looking with like the AI, like you're talking about how AI is helping you out and being able to find coding and all that stuff. Maybe it's not that. But I mean, how many people are doctors? Right? Not everybody picks that out, right? Right? Why is like so? Like maybe the approach and the organization of coding and the authority behind it, or the association of doctors of coding kind of thing, should have been allowed to form before it became, who do you work for?
Yep.
Yeah. The holy grail of blockchain will become the infrastructure for AGI. Yeah. And right, our role in all that is to define permanence.
Right. Because as fast as our system is, with 10,000 nodes, you'd be able to run a full consciousness with its own divided systems. Meaning like it could operate with the human brain. You have 100% of a brain that can only use about 15% of it at any given moment because of what we're leveraging at that time. Right? You don't use the same part for different reasons. Right? Like the part that makes you angry is the same one that's helping you eat.
Yeah, that's distributed system. So it's a distributed system. The reason why nature evolved distributed systems is because if you have a centralized system, then it's too fragile. It'll break. Yeah.
My favorite, what is it? This Stegosaurus or whatever. It had two brains because it had to have it was so big that the pads had to communicate to each other. Yeah. But one was in its butt and it was stuck over in its head.
You have a brain in its butt.
Stewart, the Swiss Stock Exchange, the Deutsche Börse, the CME, the NYSE, and the Nasdaq exchanges. Yeah. They all decentralized. Everybody worked from their homes.
Oh, interesting.
Or they weren't trading tickets. They decentralized all the people, but kept the infrastructure centralized.
Are you saying this happened in history? Did that happen in history or?
History. It's king and castle. That's how everybody purchased security. King and castle.
Interesting.
And then like banking is just like king and castle to the nth degree of how many different rings can we put around it, with the ATM being the furthest one out, right?
Yeah, it was tapped.
But yeah, we've already seen what the risk is of centralizing infrastructure in New York. We know what the result of that can be, right?
Yeah.
It's a risk. It can take an...
But we can also see what happens when, large interests come in without cultural understanding of impact. Like, like all of the cloud stuff, that's great. But, like who's getting all the money? It's like, Charlotte's using the cloud, but do you think Charlotte doesn't have a data center that's hosting all that stuff? That money's not being kept in the economies. And this is what's also adding into a lot of it. So we do need to decentralize and distribute. And this is where I was going with what I was saying about, the point that I was trying to make here is that there needs to be, everybody's right that there needed to be a reset. There needs to be something better in all that stuff. And they prop that door open and put something in there that everybody who was falling and thinking that there was something to land on has grabbed onto. And wanting to have a better path and believing that is literally part of our psychology. And that's why I mentioned the Alice in Wonderland experiment. This is a hard thing to do, is to get out of now. It's you 300 years of alchemy. All right. I forgot which one of the Renaissance guys.
Yep.
They hid his works, but it was like, I think it was like Leonardo or whatever. But, they hid all of his works because he was like super, super weirdo about it. He had written so much.
No, Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton wrote 1 million. Isaac Newton wrote 1 million notes to himself, which he never published. He never talked about it. He only talked with his guy, who is thing. But the funniest part about the alchemy story is that the time that they gave it up in the 1800s was because one guy was just like, no, this is real. We can do this. And then he poisoned himself to get out of proving to the Royal Society that he actually killed himself. I can't remember whether it was accidentally or not, but that was the final straw for alchemy. until Jung brought it up, but in the spiritual alchemy, which I actually kind of vibe with. What you said about centralization in the data centers is really interesting, and we'll take about 5 more minutes. The data centers, because the data centers, I just did a deep dive into OpenAI's plan to partner with.
The rate for electricity for everybody.
What's that?
Jack up the rate for the electricity for everybody.
Well, so OpenAI is announced Stargate Argentina, and they announced it as they've been doing these giant announcements, part of the Ponzi thing, where it's just like, we'll just make this giant announcement without any talking about the details. And you go and look at the details, and it's really interesting. So they found a local Argentine, one of whom died in the mountains recently this month, in California, and he hooked him up with the Argentine government, and also a founder of Satellogic, which is an Argentine satellite company. And essentially, OpenAI did this deal where OpenAI takes 0% of the risk. This Argentine capital vehicle, which has their entire treasury inside of Solana, is basically responsible for all of the capex risk of establishing a nuclear power plant in Argentina with an SMR and that small modular reactor. And that small modular reactor is never been done before. It took 12 years for China to develop one. The United States still has not developed a SMR, and they're going to promise it in 1 year. All of that, what I just said was researched with AI, which has hallucinations. So don't anybody take any of that seriously. But it's so they want to set up nuclear powered and solar powered data centers in Patagonia and build a city and all these crazy things. And that's only in Argentina. There's a bunch going on around the world. But this is all trying to get enough data centers. But that's way too long of a conversation that we could go down on about just the centralization of the monetary system and how that's creating all these different Ponzi schemes, which is and how it needs to decentralize, or how it will decentralize. It doesn't need to, it will, right? Because like there's no other solution, right? There's no way that this centralizing thing can continue to go. What do you think? Last 5 minutes here.
We've had electronic peer-to-peer payment systems for a long time. Thanks to a great form of operating that, right? It's just higher costs. It's less parties that are in control. There's not as much transparency. But crypto wasn't much better. There were all the controls. Let's just throw those out the door. The 100 years of trying to figure out how to protect people when bad things happen, right? And so how can you throw all that away? So Kyriakos spoke at the cybersecurity conference a couple weeks ago, and he made really a point about we're stuck in this binary prison. We think that things have to be centralized or decentralized or custody or self-custody. Maybe it's not that clear of a choice. Maybe it's somewhere in between.
Yeah,
because it's something parallel, right?
Yeah, it's never purely centralization, decentralization. And then there are different modes of decentralization, like Somalia decentralization versus the kind of like United States constitutional decentralization. All others would.
That works a lot of it because it also, these are also governing patterns, like democracy, but this resurrects even Socrates' arguments of the demagogue, but now of merit, like when we all go to the airport, do you want to vote for who just showed up today with a ticket, who flies the plane? Or do you want the guy who went to school that, who has that full thing? That's not democracy now anymore, is it? I know. There are the real things here, for me, in my endpoint, in that was really nice of Jacob, is to want, the vision of what that I'd want to see is a world of autonomy where people are treated with individualized respect, where they're allowed to operate. And when you see them behaving outside of that normal operating order, the first thought isn't, they're weird or strange or that's something wrong, but, they must be under, these parameter, whatever, and the topology changed for them. Right? Yeah, so because I'm looking at it from this angle, and everybody needs to remember that, to do anything else is to just relegate yourself to become, either the Wile E. Coyote or the Roadrunner.
Yeah, that's a really interesting problem.
Who is watching you? Yeah, and who's watching you? And maybe this is a more of a human conversation, and we all need to be talking to each other about it, because there isn't just one way to any of it. And it needs to be an argument. It needs to not be heated or anything, but it needs to be open to wanting to get to somewhere better. And I don't think that's the argument. It's the promises that are not being kept.
A lot of promises. Well, those are a whole bunch of can of worms that I want to get into. We can do a second one as well. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. How can people find out more about Agingo?
We're going to be at Money 2020, October 27th. Yeah. Speaking that we got invited to speak about beyond crypto, why the banks and exchanges have failed to embrace blockchain. And it's really all about like the limitations of blockchain and some of those resistances that we've seen. But agingo.com, you can email us at support@agingo.com. We've all done from our website. So thank you, Stewart.